Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. You know, one of the worldviews out there that gets talked about a lot of times in secular culture is that organized religion is the source of much of the world's violence these days. And Christianity gets lumped into that. And when we think about, the Crusades, which were obviously not good, we think about different things that people do in the name of their faith, in the name of Jesus even, unfortunately. It's easy to see why people might think that. But if they think that, it's because they haven't really looked into the claims of Christianity, which are rooted in the claims of Scripture. Okay, and as I was reading this morning in one of these books that's kind of hard to slog through sometimes, the book of Leviticus, I found this gem about how Christianity, how our faith in God influences our view towards other people. And actually, though a humanist perspective might argue that organized religion is the cause of a lot of violence in our world, Scripture teaches precisely the opposite. Let me show you this. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, we get to this really cool section in the Mosaic Law where God says to the people, look, I want you to follow a year of Jubilee. Every 50 years, I want you to release those who are in captivity. I want you to give back land to its original owners. I want you to forgive debts that are held against you or you're holding against somebody else. And it's really this beautiful opportunity for the people of God to experience grace, not only from God Himself, but from each other and to take care of each other as a community. And within this context, God says to the people a number of times something that I want you to follow with me on here. I'm going to read several verses from the different parts of chapter 25, and I wonder if you pick up a theme that I noticed here this morning as I read. Check this out. It says in verse 14, "And if you make a sale to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another." And then in verse 17 it says, "You shall not wrong one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God." And then in verse 36 it says, "Take no interest from him or profit, but fear your God, that your brother may live beside you." And then again in 43 it says, "You shall not rule over him ruthlessly, but shall fear your God." Now, the world would say often that organized religion is the cause of violence, but that's not what God says. Look at what He says here. He says, "You shall not wrong one another, but instead you shall fear your God." And isn't it fascinating that what God is saying here in His text is that, look, wronging one another is not God's design, but the opposite of wronging one another is fearing God. Or if we extrapolate the logic there, fearing God means treating each other well, treating each other with the kind of reverence that we would treat God, that we love God, therefore we're called to love other people. And friends, that's all over the pages here in Leviticus. It's actually all over the pages in the whole of Scripture, that loving God and loving people are not only not opposite of each other, but they actually are concordant. They go hand in hand. We are called to love those around us. And friends, when we consider our calling in life, in ministry, even here in the church, it's about God and it's about the people. And we do well to remember that. And friends, let's not give the world a reason to think anything else. Friends, we are called to love God with our whole hearts, with our minds, with our will, with everything we have. And we're called to love people. Now, loving people, of course, doesn't mean that we just call evil good. That's not what we do. But we always engage people with love. That's what God's called us to. And so let's pursue that together. Friends, remember, it's your privilege and responsibility, as it is mine, to represent Jesus to a dying world. Let's do so in love. God bless.